Okay, we're holding on page Kuf Mem Hey, opposite of page 288, probably around 12 or 11, 12 lines in the bottom where it says Avol B'Tzeis HaShechina.
Say it again, how many lines at the bottom?
Around 11 lines. Avol B'Tzeis HaShechina.
Avol B'Tzeis HaShechina.
Yeah. So what did we find out up until this point? We found out that today our Ikar Avoda and Limud Torah is not just time that we're learning Torah in order to know what to do. It's definitely an important component of learning Torah. But actually learning Torah is a very important part of our Avoda and Galus, because our Avoda and Galus is Bidur HaNitzeitzes. Our Avoda and Galus is disencumbering the sparks. And when we learn Torah, because the Torah also is somewhat in Galus, which is why there's some areas of Torah where there's questions and there isn't clarity and we don't understand the reasons. When we learn Torah, be'iyun, meaning that we deeply delve into it and try to understand it better and make chidushim. What we're doing is we're redeeming sparks of the Shechina, which is sparks of the Torah from Galus, and this is an important component of our avodah today in order to bring Mashiach. So as it turns out, both our mitzvahs that we do mitzvahs, definitely we're involved, we're doing Bidur HaNitzeitzes, we're definitely when we do mitzvahs, we're definitely elevating the sparks of the objects with which we're doing the mitzvah. But not only we're doing a mitzvah, but also when we're learning Torah, also we're involved in Bidur HaNitzeitzes. However, every job has to end at a certain point in time. Bidur HaNitzeitzes also is going to end. When is it going to end? When Mashiach comes. After all, the purpose of the Shviras HaKelim, right? We mentioned, and all the sparks falling down by from the world of Tohu and also Chet Tzadas. The purpose is that we should elevate them, and once we have that, we have a perfected world, and that is the world of Mashiach. So we don't keep on doing Bidur HaNitzeitzes forever and ever. So how about after Mashiach comes? Then what? Then what is the purpose of our Torah mitzvahs? Today we're learning Torah and doing mitzvahs in order to elevate the sparks. But when Mashiach comes, what will be the purpose of our Torah mitzvahs then? So let's do inside. However, when the Shechina leaves the Klippas Nega, in other words, after we finished our job of elevating all the sparks, after we finish the job of being mevader, of selecting and redeeming all of the sparks, v'yufrad haram mahatoiv, and the evil is separated from the good. And what happens when the evil is separated from the good? V'yispardu kol pe'eli oven, then all the solution of the pasuk, that all those who do sins will be dispersed or annihilated. And what is the reason for that? At the end of the day, the Galus HaShechina, so when you have the Shechina is within the Klippais, that's what gives the Klippais life. That's what gives it energy. The moment that we elevate all the sparks, that the Klippa loses its lifeline, because Klippa doesn't have any life force of its own. The only life force that there is comes from Hashem. Hashem is the source of all life. So as long as the Shechina, the sparks of the Shechina are in the Klippa, so the Klippa has existence. The moment all the sparks leave, so automatically, it's you pull the plug. You pull the plug in it dies, right? So at that time there is no more Klippa. And at that time, so no more Chet, the Eitz Hadas is no longer in charge. Because all the goodness, all the holiness will have departed from it, because we've elevated all the sparks. So what's our avodah then? Then our involvement, our study of Torah, and our doing mitzvahs is not going to be levader bidur. Is no longer going to be in order to disencumber and elevate the sparks. Rather, to create even higher unities, and to thereby to bring down higher lights, higher energies, and higher oyer from Hashem, yeser ma'atzilus, even higher than the world of Atzilus. So this is a concept that we've encountered before, the idea of yichudim. Yichudim means a yichud is always the unification, the bringing together of the male and female elements in any given area, just like in our world. So in order to create something new. It requires a yichud, the yichud of a man and a woman. And by the way, it's not only true in the human kingdom, it's not only true in the animal kingdom, but I think even in the vegetable kingdom also, that there's the male and the female elements that come together in order to bring forth plants and vegetation. And this is a reflection of the way it is in the higher worlds. In the higher worlds also, it's the same thing. That every yichud, that every new hamshacha of every time I want to draw down some sort of new revelation, that requires a yichud in the higher worlds. And that's why we start every day davening and l'shem yichud kutshabrichu l'shchinte. There are many who say this also before many mitzvahs, l'shem yichud. We're trying to create yichudim through our mitzvahs. We know that you hear these stories about these Kabbalists, these Mekubalim, that they went off in the corner and they were miyachid yichudim. And they brought about some sort of miracle. What does it mean they're miyachid yichudim? They're able to cause the unification of certain energies in the higher world, which brings about a flow of new energy, which created the miracle that they were looking for at that time. So today we're looking through our Torah mitzvahs simply to elevate the sparks that are captured in captivity in the klippos. But once that's finished, then the avodah is we're ready. There is no more klippa to deal with. Then avodah is only within the realm of kedusha, which is that we want to bring down higher and higher levels of kedusha, of holiness and godliness down here into the world. And that's what our Torah mitzvahs when Mashiach comes will be devoted to. And this is accomplished through Kabbalah. The Kayim HaMitzvahs b'kavanas al yenis, because what do we learn in Kabbalah? Kabbalah teaches us how to fulfill the mitzvahs with these supernal intentions, kavanas, shemukavanes la'edus al yenim chulu, which are aligned with certain supernal energies. Because ultimately the source of the mitzvahs is very high up in the Eir Ein Sof. So therefore, through doing mitzvahs, we can bring down light from the Eir Ein Sof. But we have to know the kavanas. Yichudim comes about through kavanas. So therefore, when Mashiach comes, what's going to happen? I want to skip the parentheses for a second and go to the next page. And therefore, what is going to be our main involvement in learning Torah? The main study is going to be Kabbalah, understanding the inner dimensions of the mitzvahs and their hidden reasons. So today we grapple with the Gemara, with the Mishnayos. Why? Because today we're still busy elevating the sparks, and that is through Dafka through learning Gemara, Mishnayos, and Braisos, and Halal, Shulchan Aruch, and all the Pesachim. However, when Mashiach comes, when there's no more need anymore for that, then we're trying to through our Torah mitzvahs, we're trying to bring higher energies into this world, and that's primarily through Kabbalah, because Kabbalah teaches us the right kavanas to have in order to create these yichudim. Now let's go backwards. That which our sages tell us, the mitzvahs betelos la'asalave. So when Mashiach comes in the future, there won't be any more mitzvahs. So why is that a problem? Because here the Alter Rebbe is saying that when Mashiach comes, our avodah then is going to be our Torah mitzvahs is going to be liyachid yichudim, to bring down higher energies. But don't Chazal tell us when Mashiach comes there isn't even any more mitzvahs. The Gemara says that when Mashiach comes, it says that you're allowed to bury someone in shrouds that are shatnez. So you say, well, what's the problem? Of course, when a person's dead, he doesn't have any obligations. The problem is that with Chiyas HaMesim, the person is going to wake up wearing shatnez. So the Gemara says, what?
It's going to be disintegrated, so how is it going to be?
So that's one answer, but that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says that the reason is because, first of all, how do you know what to do? What if Mashiach comes tomorrow?
All right, the person that was just buried.
But Al Kapanim, this is what the Gemara says. The Gemara says that Mrs. Betelos Laslave, when Mashiach comes, there won't be mitzvahs anymore, so therefore it's fine if the person's wearing shatnez.
By the way, just decided in the army, Israeli army, when soldiers get killed, they bury him with the clothes that he has, cleaning a little bit of blood, and that's it.
Because of blood.
No nothing. You know that.
Yeah. Hainu, so that is B'Tchiyas HaMesim. That is when it comes to Tchiyas HaMesim. During the time of Tchiyas HaMesim, then we say mitzvahs betelos. Avali Meisa Mashiach, Koyim Tchiyas HaMesim, but in the times of Mashiach before Tchiyas HaMesim ain't betelos. It's not going to become batal. And this is also obviously from many different places in the Gemara where it talks about Hilchos L'Mashiach, right? What's the halacha going to be? So Yonav is going to come and teach us. So it's obvious that when Mashiach comes, there will be Torah mitzvahs. The Gemara says mitzvahs betelos la'asalav. So we know that Chias HaMesim, Mashiach, when Mashiach comes, it's not going to be it's not as if we're going to have a process where one moment, boom, and everything is Chias HaMesim, Beis HaMikdash. The Mashiach's coming is a process, and it's brought down that Chias HaMesim is going to follow the coming of Mashiach. How long it's going to be afterwards, we don't know. But it's going to be afterwards. So in the first era, which is what's called Yemei Mashiach, that mitzvah will still exist. Now, the truth is this is only one day in the Gemara. It's another day in the Gemara. There's another day that says that mitzvahs will not be batal asalave, and explains the shatness in a different way, but al kopanim, and the pashtus mitzvahs will not become ever nullified. That's the maskana, is that mitzvahs will always be, but Al Rebbe is sidestepping the point. Even according to that opinion that says that when Mashiach comes, there won't be mitzvahs. That's in Chias HaMesim. So at the end of the day, when we're learning Torah and doing mitzvahs in Yemei Mashiach before Chias HaMesim, that's going to be in order to be miyachid yichudim.
Should be a lot of mekubalim after Tchiyat HaMetim. If we learn only Kabbalah, according to this.
During Yemei Mashiach, not yeah. Now, all of us will be. Even the Rambam says,
Well, you can learn the Kabbalah from where you can learn Kabbalah?
We're learning it now.
No, not really, but there's more to this.
The Rambam says, when Mashiach comes, that the whole world, not only Yidden, Goyim also, everyone's going to be involved in understanding Hashem. Good, but in the Zohar that we learned earlier, it made it sound when Mashiach comes, we're not learning Nikla or Halacha or Mishnah or Braisos or Gemara or anymore. And we asked on that a question. We said, what does that mean? How are we going to know what to do? And that's the case. So, the underlying reasoning, we understand already. The underlying reasoning why it is that when Mashiach comes, we're learning Kabbalah, we understand. Why? Because now our Avodah is Birur HaNitzitzis, and that involves learning Nigla. When Mashiach comes, we're not going to need it anymore, because when Mashiach comes, the primary Avodah is going to be Kabbalah. But still, don't we need to learn Nigla in order to know the halachas what to do?
If there's not going to be any mitzvahs in time of Mashiach, then what do we need the Beis Hamikdash for?
So he's saying that there will be mitzvahs when Mashiach comes. He's saying after Tchias HaMesim, there's an opinion that it won't be.
That's my question. Why do we need the Beis Hamikdash?
So I just said that, don't worry about it. The mitzvahs are never going away. That's one opinion in the Gemara. That's not the... I'll tell you, sidestepping. Even according to the opinion that says there won't be Mashiach, there won't be mitzvahs, it's still whatever we're saying can go even according to that opinion. Because even according to that opinion, earlier on in times of Yemei Mashiach, before Tchias HaMesim, there will be mitzvahs. But if we're only learning Kabbalah, how are we going to know mitzvahs? What to do? Al Rebbe is going to give a few answers. He says, Avlan Nigla is, but the Nigla, in other words, halacha, Yiyu Giluyim V'Yeduyim L'chol Ish Yisrael. Every Yid is going to know it, V'Yediyah B'Tchila, because we're going to learn it quickly. We're going to learn it. Bili Shika, we'll never forget it.
Bili Shika.
Ve'ein Tzarich Lasik Behem Ela Le'edev Rav. If you remember what we said earlier, that when Mashiach comes, we're all going to be learning Kabbalah. That's what we learned in the Zohar. And the only ones that are going to have to be learning Nigla are the Erev Rav. I'll have saying like this. Mashiach comes, are we going to have to know the halacha? Yeah, we have to know how to shacht an animal, so we have to know the halacha of a knife. We have to know, as he said, right, Shia, the Rasa, Halada.
Without knowing the mitzvah.
We have to know the halachas of Tumah V'Tara. Yeah. But that's going to be easy. We're going to all learn the halachas. And once we learn the halachas once,
you don't forget.
We're never going to forget it. Wow. So what do we do the rest of the time? And you have to remember, when Mashiach comes, everything is already clear. There is no questions. There's no more... Because the whole problem that today, the reason why we're spending time in the Gemara, the reason why the reason why we're doing that is because there's unclarity. So we need to figure it out. But that's because it's in Golus. But when Mashiach comes, there's no more Golus. So everything is clear. All the halachas are clear. There's no more machlokes. There's no more shilas. We learn the halachas and we never forget it. Sasson, are you married?
49 years.
You married? Sheldon, are you alive?
Yes.
Do you ever forget that? Do you ever someone asks you, are you alive? You're like, hold on 1 second, let me think. Ever forget about it?
No.
Sasson, you ever forget that you're married? Like if I wake up in the middle of the night and I would say, are you married, Sasson? Would you be like, 1 second, let me think.
Married to a beautiful girl.
Okay. You never forget it.
Yeah.
I hear.
Oh, you forget?
How many arms do you have, Reuven?
I don't know.
See, he forgot. He forgot. He forgot.
I think it's a joke.
Look, count. Tell me how many.
I have two.
2 arms. You ever forget about that?
No.
Why is it that certain things we forget and certain things we don't forget? Why is it that you don't forget that you're married, you don't forget you have 2 arms, you don't forget that you're alive, but some people forget their anniversaries and they get into trouble because of
What
that?
did you eat for supper last night?
No idea. I mean, if I sat and think about it, maybe I'll remember, but
What did you eat tonight?
that I remember. Yeah.
What?
I'm not so worried about where am I going with this? Why do we forget things? And why is it that some things we don't forget?
We don't forget what's important.
Okay, you could say it that way. Do you never forget that which is important? When something is important, our likelihood of forgetting it is much
Less.
less. When Mashiach comes, and we know, then we fully appreciate the importance of Torah. Whatever we learn in halacha, we appreciate its importance, we don't forget it. Like, would we ever forget and say, oh, I forgot that I wasn't supposed to walk on this street because our car's over there. I forgot I'm not supposed to walk into oncoming traffic. We don't forget that, right? It's important. But there's something even a little deeper than this. Certain things, it's not only it's important, it becomes part of my identity. I can't forget something which is part of my identity. Can I forget that I have children? Part of my identity is that I'm a father and that I have children. Part of your identity is you have 2 arms. Part of your identity is that you're alive. Part of your identity is that you're married. Right? You understand what I'm saying? When we learn Torah, every word that we learn is supposed to become part of our identity. How can we forget that? The problem is that right now there's a klipa, and the klipa, the shell, doesn't allow Torah to become part of our identity. That's why we forget sometimes. When Mashiach comes, there's no more klipa. There's no more klipa. Then every word of Torah that we learn becomes part of us.
Stay with us.
And if it becomes part of us, it's not shaykh to forget. So again, remember, this combination of 2 factors here. Number 1, when Mashiach comes today to learn, you have to struggle to figure out a piece of Gemara, and you have the different opinions, and Mashiach comes, there's no more opinions, there's no more struggle, because Torah goes out of the Golus and everything is clear. So we have all the halachas. We learn the halachas once, and we know it. What do we do the rest of the time?
Kabbalah.
We learn Kabbalah. So therefore, most of the time when Mashiach comes is going to be spent learning Kabbalah, not learning Nigla. Who's going to have to learn Nigla when Mashiach comes? The Erev Rav. The unidentified Erev Rav. We don't know. The Zohar talks about the Erev Rav. I'm not sure who it's talking about. Sasson, that's you? No, Sasson is not part of the Erev Rav.
How could he be?
No, the
I
whole
was, I was tongue in cheek.
It's the arm of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Erev Rav.
Uh-huh.
The Erev Rav in general are the people who they joined Klal Yisrael for the wrong reasons. They didn't join because really they had a love for Hashem, but because they saw the Makkos and they saw that the Yidden were the winning bandwagon, so they joined. So Erev Rav represents those kinds of people who they're in it all for the wrong reasons. These people, even after Mashiach comes, they're still going to be grappling with Klippa. Now you're going to say, when Mashiach comes, there's still going to be Klippa? So as I mentioned earlier, Mashiach's coming is a process. It's not something, yes, there will be one moment when Mashiach, when the Geula begins, but even that is the beginning of a process. And at the very beginning, there still might be Klippa, but who's going to be struggling with Klippa then? Not the Yidden, the Erev Rav. And therefore, they will have to be still learning Nigla most of the time, Gemara most of the time. Why? Because they're going to forget. And also, not only they're going to forget, but also they still have to unlock the Torah. It's not like by Klal Yisrael everything is going to be clear and out in the open. They're still going to have to struggle. Let's do this inside.
But before you continue, the Erev Rav was in Yetziat Mitzrayim.
So who's the Erev Rav today?
Descended.
I don't know. The Zohar talks about the Erev Rav. I don't know who it's referring to. The Ein Sanach Lasik Behem Elom.
Anyway.
Maybe some goyim when Mashiach comes will come here. I don't know.
They were Makai, the one.
Har Sinai.
The Erev Rav was Makai.
Har Sinai, they became Gerim, so everybody became a Ger at that time.
The ain't tzarich lasik b'hem ela later. Rav, the only ones who are going to have to then at that point learn nigla. In other words, put serious effort into it as opposed to us. We're just going to learn it once and remember it. The ones that are going to have to put in the serious effort is the Erev Rav. Shelo yizku lemitam me'ilam al dechaya. They will not be zoicha to taste from the Eitz HaChaim. What is the Eitz HaChaim? Shupnimiyas HaTorah v'ha-mitzvah, which is the Kabbalah and the understanding of the inner dimension of Torah mitzvahs. Tzrichim lasek b'Torah. They need to study Torah b'Mishnah lahatish koyach ha-Sitra Achra hadavuk b'hem, to weaken the power of the Sitra Achra, which will still be stuck to them at that time, and they'll weaken it al yidei esek ha-Torah, through learning Torah. Shlei tishleit b'hem lahachtiyam, because otherwise they might end up doing Avedas. Are you going to say, oh, Mashiach comes, there's still Avedas? He says, yeah, Kediksi, as the Pasuk says, v'hachoyte ben meya shana yikulo. It says that someone who sins will be cursed when he's 100 years old. What does that mean? Sheyu chaytim. There will be sinners when Mashiach comes, and that is me'erevav, not from Yidden. So therefore, the Erevav will still have to learn the Gemara and the Mishnayos to protect them from sin. That's point number one.
They weren't cleansed. They're supposed to be cleansed when.
Apparently not. Apparently even when Mashiach comes, the Erevav, at least for the initial parts of Mashiach comes, they're still going to have to be fighting with the Klippa.
So we will know exactly who is Erev Rav. We see somebody learn Gemara.
Exactly.
In Mishnah, you see him, you're the Erev Rav.
Exactly. You walk in the street in Yerushalayim, you see a koil, and everyone's in there studying Gemara and Ketzas and the Ketzas and the Sivis, and you look at it must be Erev Rav.
Yeah.
Must be Erev Rav. Let's move on to the next yeshiva where there's the Yidden are sitting and learning Zoyar and Tanya, right?
Doesn't sound right.
V'gam.
Doesn't sound right.
That's a statement. That's not it's not a question. I can't argue with a statement. You're saying it doesn't sound right, but this is what the Zohar tells us. The Zohar tells us very clearly. Then the Alter Rebbe says, "V'gam l'maisa." Also, there's another reason why the Erev Rav is going to have to be studying Nigla much more than Klal Yisrael. Yiut shrichim leprati halachis, Yisr v'heter Yisr Yisrael. The Erev Rav are going to need to study the details of the halachis of that which is Asr and that which is Tami more than Yidden. They have to be careful that nothing should happen to them. Are pasul of the tumah of Asr. They shouldn't stumble over something which is even by mistake, something which is pasul or Tami or Asr. Kilo yu'unachu. Alter Rebbe is making reference to a rule. There's a pasuk that says lo yu'una l'tzadik kol oven, which means that a sin does not happen to a tzaddik, which the Gemara understands to mean that a tzaddik is protected from doing an Avera b'shegig. Hashem doesn't allow a tzaddik, no, everyone has free choice, but the Hashem does not allow a tzaddik to do an Avera b'shegig.
It's tzaddik bar, it's
Shloichta. Yeah.
So I said that what, and what did you say? Let's see what the contradiction is. What did I say just now?
You said a tzaddik does not sin.
No, I did not say that.
He's
Let's start again. What did I say? I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said Hashem doesn't allow a tzaddik to do an Avera by accident. That's what I said.
Okay. So
what's the problem now?
ain't tzaddik well yeah.
Which means what? That means that Hashem does allow tzaddikim to do.
There is no tzaddik that doesn't sin.
And what did I say? Did I say that there is that tzaddikim don't sin? I didn't say that.
Hashem not allowed the tzaddikim.
Hashem does not tzaddikim to do what?
To sin b'shogeg.
Yeah.
So he allows them to sin by b'mezid.
Correct. Well, why is that difficult to understand? A person has free choice. So if a person decides to use their free choice to do an Avera, that's their choice. But if a person's a tzaddik, which means the person doesn't want to do Averas, he's a tzaddik, the Eibishter is going to protect him against doing Averas by mistake. State in the Gemara.
Yeah, there's a presumption though that every Yid doesn't want to, his neshama does not want him to sin. No? Aren't I right?
You're right.
There's
Yes.
There's a presumption that every Yiddish neshama.
We're going to skip this piece because Sheldon doesn't accept this Gemara, so we're going to skip this piece. The Gemara says Le'una l'tzadik oven means that Hashem doesn't allow a tzaddik to do an Avera by mistake. He doesn't allow it to happen. Period. Now,
He still have his free will, though.
he has free will.
He still has free
Free
will.
will.
I understand.
And
that.
inadvertently,
The story
if
is
an
that-
accident, inadvertently, he does an Avera.
So by us, we can do it by accident. Hashem doesn't allow a tzaddik. In other words, if a person of tzaddik who doesn't do averas, that he should stumble and do an avera by mistake. David says, "What do you mean? I'm going to protect him from that." There's a story about tzaddik. It was Rav Nachman of Chernobyl, and the story said about him that he once they brought in some food. It was by a meal. Put the food on the table, and everyone, people are starting to eat, and he's not eating. And they say to him, "Why aren't you eating?" He says, "Bring me food, and I'll eat." He says, "What do you mean? There's a place in front of you." He's like, "I don't see anything. I don't see any food over there." So they did a little investigation, and they found out that it was a milchige dish, and it wasn't chol yisrael. And then on this they say a vart. That the Gemara, when the Mishnah talks about cholav akum, it describes it cholav shechol ve'akum ve'ein yisrael re'ehu. Milk which was milk by a goy, and the yid doesn't see it. So what is the pashup shot of it? That
You can put something.
what is cholav akum is milk which, when it was milk, the yid didn't see the milking. But there's a deeper meaning. Cholav shechol ve'akum, milk which was milk by a goy ve'ein yisrael re'ehu. Someone who's an emes yisrael, someone's an emes yid doesn't see it. He can't see it. And yisrael re'ehu. That's because that tzaddik, the Eibishter, won't allow the tzaddik to do an avera by mistake. We have,
You ignored what I said.
even behemtan shal tzaddikim, even the behemoths shal tzaddikim. The chamer Pinchas ben Yair.
Yeah, doesn't want to work Shabbat.
Eibishter won't allow it the behemoth of tzaddik even to eat tevel, right? So when Mashiach comes, let's apply this logic over here. Klal Yisrael, the Yidden, we're going to be tzaddikim. So do we have to know the halachas? Generally speaking, yes, we're going to have to know the halachas, as you mentioned. So we're going to have to learn it quickly once.
Amazing.
But to go into the nitty gritty and the details and to keep on learning it, because maybe I might stumble and do the wrong thing if I don't know the halachas 100%. The Eibishter won't allow you to do that.
I'm not allowed to do anything.
The Eibishter won't allow it to happen. So you don't have to be so careful as long because we'll be all tzaddikim, and we don't have to sit and gribble in the words of the Alter Rebbe. What did you say? We don't have to prati halachas every single detail. We can trust that the Eibishter is going to make sure that we
won't come to
an avera. The Erev Rav, on the other hand, because the Erev Rav won't be on the level of tzaddikim, they have to go and learn every single detail because they can't be assured that the Eibishter won't allow them to do an avera. So therefore, they are going to have to learn much more than us. Okay.
Right.
So what do we have so far? Up until this point, the Rebbe said two ideas, and both of them are the underlying idea, and both of them is that when Mashiach comes, we're going to have to learn a little nigla. We're going to have to learn the basic halachas, but we're not going to have to learn a lot because we'll remember everything that we learned, and we don't have to worry because the Eibishter, anyways, is not going to allow us to do an avera by mistake. The Erev Rav, we're going to have to learn it again, but learn a lot of nigla. But at the same time, a little we're going to have to learn. The very basics, every Yid is going to have to learn the basics, halachas of kosher and puzzle and tamei. The next answer the Alter Rebbe is going to give is no, we're not going to learn any nigla when Mashiach comes. It's not that we're going to learn a little, but then we're going to remember it all. We're not going to learn any. And this is such a radical idea that the Alter Rebbe starts off by saying, he says, v'gamino, so efsher, it's possible. You see the Alter Rebbe is like, v'gam efsher. The first word in the line is v'tuma.
What's that again?
The first word in the line is vituma. V'gam efsher. The Alter Rebbe introduces it like almost hesitantly. It's a very big chiddush. V'gam efsher, it's possible. V'karev hadavar, it's likely. But if the Alter Rebbe says efsher v'karev hadavar, we can, we can take that to the bank.
Cash in.
As I state, the Rebbe says over that I don't know the details of the story, but the Rebbe Rashab said a mimer, and his son, the Fidik Rebbe, he chazed over the mimer. Now, in this mimer, the Rebbe Rashab, he said something, and he answered, he gave a v'yesh leimer. He said v'yesh leimer. When the Fidik Rebbe chazed the mimer, he didn't say v'yesh leimer. He just gave that. This is the answer. And the Rebbe Rashab asked him afterwards, I don't understand. I said v'yesh leimer. V'yesh leimer means, and perhaps it can be said.
Yeah.
And you said the answer that this is it. This is it. That's not what I said. You changed what I said. And the Fidik Rebbe said, Your Yesh Lemar is my Vadai. Your maybe is my for sure. If you say Yesh Lemar, to me that's all I need. Right?
That's all I need.
Like when Tosfos says V'yesh Lemar, that's not it's not a maybe, it's for sure. Same thing when Alter Rebbe says Efsher v'Kardav Adavar Azayis. Let's look inside. Efsher v'Kardav Adavar sheyedu mepnim yisateiram kol gufi hateiram haniglas. We're not going to have to learn Nigla at all. We're not going to have to learn Gemara at all. Why?
And
We're going
what
to
is
learn
it?
Kabbalah. We're going to learn Chassidus, and from that we're going to know every single halacha.
So what is Eliyahu going to come and teach us then?
Let me finish.
Not-
Let me finish. Kamei Avram Avinu, all of Hashem, just like Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu lived before
Matan Torah.
Matan Torah, so he didn't know any of it. He didn't know. That Torah wasn't given. So how did he know? How did he know the halachas? We talk about Avram Avinu. It says that Avram Avinu, he was busy speaking to Hashem, and suddenly we have the guests appearing, and Avram Avinu tells the Eibishter,
Stay on the side.
excuse me, hold on a second, I have guests, I'll get back to you. And he put the Eibishter on hold,
Doesn't sound.
and he went and took the other call.
Yeah.
And from this, what do we know? From this Chazal tell us, from this we learned that
Yoter.
Yeser Makabalos Peshchina. So this we know that Hachnas Sarkim is more important, it's greater than Mekabel Shchina, which is great.
How did Avraham Avinu know?
How did Avraham Avinu know that halacha? Which Shulchan Aruch did Avraham Avinu learn? The answer is Avraham Avinu knew it because Avraham Avinu knew Chassidus and he knew Kabbalah. What does that mean?
Who taught him that?
Who
He
taught it him?
learned it by Shem Be'aver.
He was floating in the higher worlds and he became aware of it. What is Chassidus Kabbalah? He's understanding the deeper elements of the Torah.
But you need a Rebbe to teach you that. You need a Mesorah for that.
Maybe
If you
learned
never
it by
learned
Shem-
Tanya, how do
may-
you know about Olam Atzilus and all
Maybe
the-
you learned it by Shem Ve'ever, but upon him, what you're asking is a good question. But the Metzias is that Alter Rebbe says,
Oh, I
Avraham
think that
Avinu
is
knew it.
given.
Raftim Yisanyana. Every mitzvah is made up of a guf and a neshama. The guf of the mitzvah is the
Yes,
bottom
see.
line. Whatever. The neshama of the mitzvah is the shayrish and the makir and pnim yisanyana, in the higher worlds. The spiritual idea behind the mitzvah, the kavana of the mitzvah. If you know the kavana, then automatically you know what to do. And you know every single detail of what to do. Shnayim Meichs and Betalas. So what's the halacha? What's the halacha?
Achleiku.
So you say Yachleika, right? You know that from the Mishnah. But what is the talis? And what is the Shnayim Meichs and Baruch Nisinyan? There's before the Rebbe became Rebbe, the Rebbe wrote a whole big kuntras. Fascinating kuntras. It's called kuntras. I think I've spoken about it once before. Kuntras Shnayim Meichs and Betalas. It was never printed. They found it in the Rebbe's desk after Gimel Tammuz. Never printed. And it was, the name of the Sefer was something like Biur, an explanation of the Teichin of the Sugi of Shnayim Meichs and Betalas, the Bnei HaYishuv. The Rebbe starts off, there gives a Hakdama there, the introduction. We know that every idea in Nigla it's sourced, every single idea is sourced in Chassidus, in Kabbalah. So I want to give you an example, one Sugya. So there's two parts to this long essay that the Rebbe writes. The first part is the Rebbe goes in Nigla. The Rebbe goes through the entire Sugya and all the shittas of the Rishonim, explaining where everyone stands in Shnayim Meichs and Betalas. Then the Rebbe goes and explains the Sugya according to Chassidus. Every single detail, what is the Shnayim, what is the Eichazinim, what is the Talis, and what does this mean in the higher worlds? And the Rebbe explains it according to each one of the Rishonim. In other words, the different opinions of the Rishonim are all based on different realities above. So if I know if I'm in tune with the Sfiras Alyenis, I know what the Shnayim is, the Eichazin is, the Talis is, then automatically I know the Halach is Yachleiku because I know what it is. I know the Makkah. I don't have to learn the Gemara. I'm aware of the way it is above. That's on one level. And there's another idea here.
What's going on? This guy's making noise.
I'm going to say a sequence of letters, of numbers. Okay. Let's see if anyone can continue. I'll tell you when I'm stopping. Okay, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36. Okay, anyone, can you,
39. 39.
39, and then?
42.
Really? You're the only one over here who can do that? Shmuel, what's the
Oh,
next
the
number
only
after
one away.
42, Reuben?
Can't do it.
45.
45. David, how did you know that? I didn't say what the next number is. How did you know what the next number is?
Is it going?
I'm looking at the Tanya.
Because you're looking at the Tanya. Now, if I went to my the 5-year-old kid and I said 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, what's the next number? They would look at me like I was nuts. I don't know. You didn't tell me what the next number is. How am I supposed to know what the next number is? But if I go to an adult, at least most of them, right? And I say 3, 6, 9, 15, 18, and I say, what's the next number?
21.
It's 21. But how did you know it? I didn't tell you. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When you get the theory behind something, if I understand the Eibishter, I know what he wants. I know what the next number is. I could know what my father wants without him telling me what to do. Because I know him. When we learn Kabbalah, we learn Chassidus, we understand Hashem, we know what to do. We're not going to, the Erev Rav is going to have to sit and learn Gemara. Because they're going to be like the little kids, who they're going to say, 3, 6, 9, 15, 18, and what's the next number? I don't know. Let's look at the Gemara. And we're like, you don't know what to do? You don't know Hashem? You don't know what Hashem wants of you? How could you not know? He has to tell you what to do. What kind of idiot are you anyways? You know, you have a Nadav and Avihu. So they were punished. Why? Because Shisuya Yayin Nichnasu Lamikdash.
Yeah.
They went in drunk. Now the problem with that is they weren't told not to go. They weren't told anything. They weren't told not to. The prohibition against entering the Mishkan when you're drunk was commanded afterwards. So how could they be punished? There's a whole sikha from the Rebbe on this. There's a Rashi says over there, Mashal Lamelech that had a ben bayis. And the rest of the mashal, which is from Medrash, the Rashi just says, K'di Isa, take a look in the Medrash. So the Rebbe says, wait a minute, either send you to the Medrash or say the whole mashal. Don't give you 3 words.
And then,
The Rebbe says, no. Mashal to Melech has a ben bayis. For a ben bayis, when you're a ben bayis by the Melech, you're supposed to know what the king wants. He doesn't have to tell you. Nadav and Avihu were ben bayis. They understood. Yeah, they can be punished even if they, even though they were never told it. They should have known it. Should have known it. When Mashiach comes, what is wanted and needed of us is going to be obvious. Why? Because we're going to learn Kabbalah, holding Chassidus. We're going to become intimate with Hashem, intimately understanding the reasons and the premise of every single mitzvah, understanding Hashem. And we're not going to have to learn Gemara. We're not going to have to learn Nigla to understand the halacha. Right? We're going to learn tzitzis, right? So what's the halacha? If 2 strings of the tzitzis get torn, right? So the Erev Rav are going to have to open up a Shulchan Aruch and figure it out. Because we understand what every single tzitzis represents, and we're going to understand the deepest secrets of tzitzis, we're going to be like, oh, two strings fell off. Well, of course the halacha is this. I don't need a Shulchan Aruch. Because I understand the whole...
the theory.
I understand the whole theory behind it, yeah. So this is a radical idea. It's a radical idea.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
the whole thing of Tchiat HaMetim and Mashiach, it's based on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Kabbalah. He was the one that brought the Kabbalah to the air. It means...
1 second. Tchias HaMesim is not from Shimon
Not
Bar
Tchiat
Yochai.
HaMetim. I mean, we're saying here we learn Kabbalah, we don't need...
The idea of, yes, it's from Shimon Bar Yochai, yes.
So the whole idea of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Yeah.
So he was one of the, I think, the greatest of the greatest. If because of what he brought to the world, we are holding it very strong. When Mashiach come, we be basic learning only Kabbalah. Well, so he really was. Now I appreciate more.
So you're asking why? So if so, then why is the Mashiach comes? You know, Yonah, he's coming. Pascal Halachas for us. It's a good question. A good question. So what do you do when you have a question? So that's why now that we're still in Gullus, and that's why there are questions. That's what we're learning about over here. So we have a question. We have to heart of it. We have to use our mind to come up with a chiddush and figure out the answer to this question.
So
And
that's
when you
why
figure
have
out the
to
answer
learn
to your
you.
question, then you're being mevarer on nitzutz. You're elevating on nitzutz in galus and bringing Mashiach closer when you are able to figure out an answer to this question.
Yeah,
Work
but
on it.
when the Gemara says teku, it means that you're not going to know now. We're going to find out later. We're going to find out from Eliyahu Navi. So that's the nigla that's the nigla that we're going to learn after Mashiach. No,
Who knows? Maybe
That's
Eliyahu
what
Navi will teach us
that's the
that.
way I understand it.
Yeah, that's the way everyone understands it. But who knows? Maybe it means Eliyahu Navi will teach us the secrets of the Torah behind it, and suddenly the question will go away to us. Maybe that's what it means.
To me, it's like,
We have to wait and to get to
There
the
we
point
go.
when Mashiach.
wait and
That
see.
question that you have right now, Teku.
Take him.
Not a takeover.
You have to wait. What do you want?
Yeah, I learned that time, right?
I don't care. The main thing we see the Mashiach.
Yeah.
You know, with Pesach is coming up. So now Avram Avinu that he ate matzah on Pesach. Right, Lushi Vasi Ugais, he ate matzah on Pesach. And he ate matzah to the point that he even taught light also to eat matzah on Pesach.
How do you know?
How did he know to eat matzah? And it's an even deeper question. This is 400 years before the Yidden go out of Mitzrayim. So Avram is eating the matzah and thinking what? Why am I eating matzah? Why is he eating matzah? We eat matzah today. We say matzah zushon oichel mashuma because lehispik but sakasav is saying lahagna. Why is Avram eating matzah? What's he thinking when he's eating matzah? So then we open up a Sefer Chassidus. We open up, let's say, a Derech Mitzvah, a Sefer HaMitzvahs. And we find out what's matzah. The idea of matzah, which is the idea of chita, chita is the idea of chachma, which is the idea of bittul, which is connected to cheres, right? I'm not getting into the whole thing. The point is, Avraham Avinu was totally in sync with all the spiritual energies. Came along the first night of Pesach, and he senses in the air, there's cheres, there's some sort of special freedom energy. And he's ready, I have to make matzah. To make matzah because the wheat represents the chachma, which brings the Sabbath. It wasn't because he saw in Shulchan Aruch, it's because he got it. He got it based on all the spiritual energies. And when Mashiach comes, we're going to be in that same way, in that same position.
We have to bring the same food like Avraham Avinu brought the tongue for the ochel.
Okay?
So Pesach we have to kelim naim, have good food, tongue.
Yeah.
Tongue with mustard.
Hashem came bisman by Yesheni. This is, until now, we're talking about what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. How about when Mashiach comes? How about in the times of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, right, in the times of Yesheni? So then, then they needed to learn Nikla, Gam Kilei B'Shvil Halacha L'Maisa B'Vad. It's not only about knowing Halacha L'Maisa. In other words, you could say, 1 second, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, I can make the same argument. Shimon Bar Yochai, he was definitely a tzaddik. He definitely was second. Shimon Bar Yochai definitely didn't forget Torah that he learned, right? And he was a tzaddik, so he wouldn't have been nichshal, stumbling in the by mistake. And also, there's no question that Shimon Bar Yochai could have known all the nigla from knowing the Kabbalah. So why did Reb Shimon Bar Yochai need to learn the Mishnah? There's a mimer from, it was a great chassid, there was a Hillel Parich, in the first generations of Chabad, and he writes in a mimer that the Alter Rebbe said that before the great tzaddikim like Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the Beis HaMikdash was never destroyed. In other words, they lived in a level of Geula. So Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, why was he learning Mishnah? He should have just learned Gemara. Alter Rebbe says, because now, you have to remember, as long as we're in Galus, the main purpose of learning Nigla is Lei B'Shvil Halacha L'Maisa B'Vad. It's not only to know what to do. If the only reason why to learn Mishnah and Gemara is to know what to do, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai would not have had to learn. Why? Because he knew what to do by learning Zohar. By him learning Zohar and being in touch with everything, he knew what to do. Ella, rather, Shezeu Ikar Avodah, during Galus, that's the main Avodah. Lahaktish Koyach HaSeter Achra. To weaken the strength of the Seter Achra, Lahaleis Netzutzei HaKedusha, and to elevate the sparks of Kedusha, Ayidei HaTorah of Avodah, through learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, Commissioner's Barba, Makam Acher, is explained elsewhere. So the reason Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was learning Mishnah is not because he needed to know what to do. He knew what to do. But that's the main avodah in Galus, is learning Torah, asking the questions, revealing whatever needs to be revealed, giving the reasons, because that's our avodah in Galus. V'achar hadvarim va'emes, and after everything that we spoke about, Yuvan Hativ will understand well, but Tisefes beer. Now it makes very sense. Harayim Mehemna Delil, the Rayim Mehem with which we started this Perek. The Masha Amar, that which the Rayim Mehemna says, Ilona de Tevera Chulu. The Rayim Mehemna says, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Ritzein Lemer is not talking about Torah. Torah is never the tree of knowledge. Ritzein Lemer Klipas Noiga. It's talking about Klipas Noiga, which now that's what is dominant. Shu'elam Hazeh Ho'iker. That is the main thing in Elam Hazeh, Klipas Noiga, K'mishas Bor Be'etz Chaim, as explained in Eitz Chaim, Vidal. And with this, we've concluded this piece. It's very interesting. The last two letters that we learned. This is not necessarily a letter, actually. There's this one. If you remember, Simen Chaf Hey was about the Tzavas Harivash. Tzavas Harivash. Remember the thing about the goy who was disturbing the Yid during davening. So that was. And now we have this letter from the Zohar. So, common themes in both of them. We talk about Galus HaShechina. If you remember in Simen Chaf Hey, we spoke about Galus HaShechina. The Shechina's in the Galus in the goy who was speaking these words. And here also we're talking about the Galus HaShechina, but on a different level. Here we're talking about the Galus HaShechina within Torah. But also both of these seem to be addressed to the times. The Chassidim versus Misnagdim. The new movement of Chassidus that was there at that time. So Simen Chafei was addressed to the Misnagdim, saying, you have a problem with that which the Baal Shem Tov wrote, and you're burning his books. So you have to understand that everything Baal Shem Tov wrote is 100% correct, based on what Arizal says. And this letter is more, l'chira, it seems, it's more addressed to the Chassidim. And the point of this letter is, Alter Rebbe is saying, this is, there's this new movement called Chassidus. And in this movement, we very much emphasize learning Chassidus and learning Pnimius HaTorah. But we have to remember still that as long as we're in Galus, even though we're learning Chassidus today, in Galus the main Avodah still remains learning Mishnah Gemara. When Mashiach comes, that's going to change. But we're still in Galus, and therefore now, it's clearly though that as we get closer to Mashiach, we're learning more Chassidus, more Kabbalah. We're getting closer to that time when Mashiach comes. But it's interesting also that one of the parallels, if you remember, we said that the entire week we do Beider. And Shabbos Beider is Aser. Why in Shabbos don't do Beider? Because the whole week we're being Mevar, we're elevating the sparks. Shabbos we're going to elevate the sparks. What does that correspond to? The 6 days of the week represents the 6,000 years of Galus, we're elevating sparks. Shabbos and Mashiach comes, we're not elevating sparks anymore, there's no more Beider. The same thing is also 6 days a week, 6,000 years, the main Avodah is learning Nigla. In the 7th millennium, Mashiach comes, the main Avodah is Kabbalah. Correspondingly, even in our time also, 6 days a week, our main Avodah is learning Mishnayos and Gemara. And Shabbos, the main Avodah is learning Kabbalah and Nistar, right? The Rebbe Rashab, he wrote that the Seder is that on a normal day, on a regular day, a weekday, this was his advice to Lubavitcher Chassidim. He says that your study should be divided 2/3 Nigla, 1/3 Chassidus, which is why in Tam Chitmim, in the official Lubavitcher Yeshiva, it was 4 hours a day Chassidus, 8 hours a day Nigla. And he says Shabbos, we reverse that. Shabbos 2/3 Chassidus and 1/3 Nigla. And the reason for that is because Shabbos is representative, Yom Shekoi, Shabbos Umunuch L'Chayelam, Shabbos is similar to Mashiach, just like when Mashiach comes, our Avodah is going to be Kabbalah. So therefore also, a me'ain of that, similar to that, also today in Shabbos, our main Avodah is more Pnimis HaTorah, because we're not doing Beider on Shabbos. We don't have to elevate so much the Netzaitis and Torah. Instead, we spend our time learning Chassidus and Kabbalah. But now we've concluded Siman Chavav. Next week, Mir Tzashem, we're going to start Siman Chav Zayin. Siman Chav Zayin, a fascinating letter. It's a letter of condolences, a condolence letter that Alter Rebbe wrote to the Chassidim following the passing of Reb Nachum Mendel of Haradak. A fascinating letter, a very foundational letter in terms of understanding what life and death is all about. What?
He was a chassid.
We'll find out. We'll find out next week.
Haradak. He used to go to Haradak show. The show in Brownsville, the Haradak.
Okay. We'll start that in Mir Tzashem next week.